Hello everyone, my name is Seth and welcome to our Unreal Engine 5 role-playing games development series. That title needs work, but we will be working on it. I'm just going to say right off the bat, Unreal Engine 5 its main purpose is to make 3D games. If you plan to make like a 2D side scroller or a pixelated game, like a web browser game or something like that, anything flat related that doesn't involve 3D things, then I recommend you use a different engine, as Unreal Engine sort of specializes in those 3D games. Don't take my word for it though. Trust me as you will. Once we open our Unreal Engine, we're going to be able to create a project, and honestly, everything that we will be learning in this series can be used if you want to make a first-person game or a top-down game, or if you want to make a third-person game like me. This is what we will be using. Unreal Engine allows you to pre-use these projects that they come out with, which is going to simplify our process a lot more. You don't have to use what I use, but if you're here to learn, simply learn how to program, and you want to follow along, I highly recommend that you also choose third person, because there are going to be differences when you do use these, say, virtual reality, top down, or first person, or blank. So if you're here to make your own game, you can use these things. Just note that there will be differences. If not, click third person, and we're going to be starting our project. We won't be changing any of these things. You might be familiar with other game engines like Unity, and I'm going to advocate for Unreal Engine if you are newer. Unreal Engine, in short, has this thing called blueprint programming, which makes it a lot easier to learn how to program and make games. By no means does it mean that it's easy. It's just a lot more intuitive, and you will see why in a little bit. Sorry for the background noise if you hear it. But click third person and just keep all these default settings and rename your project at the bottom here and click create. I have already done this. Like I said, this is like my 10th time trying to do this. And here, every time that you open Unreal, you will access your project to the recent projects and click whatever you named your project. So double click and it will open, and you will get this loading screen with this percentage at the bottom left telling you how much of your project is loaded. So I'm just going to click on that, wait until that gets 100, and we will see what it comes with. So if you just made your project and it's brand new, it's probably going to tell you at the bottom to update because it's out of date. Just click update. It should be really quick, just a few seconds. Here we are. I'm just going to be teaching you the basics to UI and navigation. Now, the whole point of this lesson 0, I realized while trying to record the first lesson and trying to get into the game that there's going to be a lot of complicated terms or things that you may not be familiar with. So if you are a beginner, I highly recommend watching this video so that you are able to easily navigate or understand what I will be talking about in future videos. I'll try to make this quick. For basic navigation, this is your game window, and this is everything that you will be seeing in your game. If we hold right click, we're going to see that this plus sign disappears, and we're able to turn with our mouse and move around with W, A, S, and D. So the navigation is a bit tricky at first, but once you get used to it, you're able to move around pretty freely. You can change your speed to your liking depending on how big our world is going to get. I won't be messing with these things, but just showing you. Yeah, that's really fast. Just showing you that you can edit if it feels too fast or quick. I'll change it to 1. Wow, that is really slow. It may seem really overwhelming at first, all of these things, but I assure you that I really only use a very set amount of things in this whole program. We will be repeating usage, and it's pretty similar, and it feels really familiar going through the engine because you kind of just go through the same thing. You'll see what I mean once you start programming, if that makes sense, but just letting you know, do not be overwhelmed. So first, we're going to be starting with our outliner, and what the outliner is it shows you all of it says here 40 actors in our world. So everything that's in your world is called an actor because it is a thing that is in the game. And we can see here, there are 40 things. We can search by name. We can click on these things and we see that it highlights. We can see it through walls as well, although it's very, very faint. But if we're above it, it glows orange. So if you want to navigate in your world, we're going to be clicking on things a lot. If our world gets a lot bigger, like trees and bushes, and it's really hard to see those faint lines, we can double click as well, and it'll bring us straight to that object, no matter how big or small. So say, for example, I know that this cube is called SM Chamber 4 Cube 2. If I double click, it'll just put me right on top of it. You can also do search. So if I know the name of something, that's why naming your things is very important, so that when we name our things, we can be able to easily find it and reference it. So yeah, this is our outliner, and this just shows you everything that is in the world. Now to playing the game. The whole point of these pre-built projects is that they come with just a really basic fleshed out game. So if I click that play button, if you saw at the top, we see that there's a game. You can try to move around, it won't work, but you can see that my cursor is here. If I just left click on this playable window, not here, not here, not around, this window where our game is, our mouse is going to disappear, and suddenly we are in the game. For the third person project specifically, it comes with movement, so WASD. So WASD and stuff like that. We can move around with our mouse, and we have jumping. It saves us a lot of time because we don't have to do these very basic things. Not that it takes long as you have experience, but if you have no experience, it's just really quick, and you're able to just start getting right into that programming, which we'll be doing in lesson 1. So here we see that. If we want to end this program, we just press escape. So become very familiar with these. You can use the shortcut key. If you hover over it, it'll tell you that Alt-P will also start the game. For our sake, I won't be doing that, just because I want you guys to know if I am clicking on the game. Say if I'm like editing something over here and I do Alt-P and you don't, like I didn't tell you or something, maybe I'll miss it. You might not be know what's happening or be kind of confused. So always, I'm just going to be clicking this green arrow, but you can use Alt-P if you want, or just use the arrow like me. But I'm always going to press escape, obviously, because my mouse has disappeared, so I press escape to get out of those things. So we saw, if you're very observant, you might have seen on the side that when we start this game and we scroll down, we saw all these yellow things. These yellow things indicate actors that are spawned into the world once we click that play button. So this character initially isn't here at all, like we can't see it when we start the game, but when we press play, this character appears, and you can see that makes sense because suddenly it appears in this world folder or your outliner. And so it might be really confusing at first. I remember first starting how to program, I was like, how did this guy access this character? And I figured out, well, that's because they only spawn in after you click that play button. So if you're ever confused or can't seem to access something, try clicking that play button and see if it's on the side. If we click on characters, I'll click on, say, our actual character, which is named BP third person character. Again, names are very important. We see that this details panel will show us everything that we can change about the character. So suddenly we see its location, rotation, scale, mobility, its meshes, and all these other settings. It's a lot. I guarantee we won't be using every singular thing, but this is everything that you can change about a character if you decide you want to. I mean, there is hundreds of things here that you can change. I guarantee that I will probably not be touching most of these things. So we click stop, and now the last thing that we're going to be covering is the contents drawer and blueprint programming. So if you go to the bottom left of your window, we open that and we see all of these contents here. I already had these open, but let's just go to, I don't know what the default is, so I'm just going to go to the first one, all content. And we see this is everything that our project came with. Now, keep in mind, I haven't programmed or touched this program at all, and it comes with all this stuff, which is great for us, especially for new, that we're able to start with all this stuff, which is amazing about Unreal Engine. If you were doing this from like a programming language and learning from scratch, you'd have to do everything from scratch. So this one gives you this sort of the foundation that you need to start. For our sake, you can navigate through these folders to see all these other things, especially the starter content, all the things that the game came out with. So there's like maps here, it looks like. There's some audio cues, some particles that we can mess with. You can mess around with those or look around to see what there is. But for our sake, we're just going to be going straight into third person, and we're going to be going into blueprints. Now, blueprints, if you remember, is the thing that I was talking about earlier, is the type of programming that Unreal Engine uses that's going to make it really intuitive for us to program. Now, if you know what programming looks like, this is going to look a lot different than what we're used to. And all of these blocks are just pre-programmed code put into the form of a box, which is going to make it a lot easier for us to understand and really quickly, easily learn how to program without actually learning how to program. But it is, if that makes any sense at all. So here we see that this is blueprint, named accordingly with this gray grid here, like a blueprint, and these blocks that we won't be going over these now. We'll be covering it in lesson 1, but just become familiar that this is blueprint, and we're going to be working with these blocks a lot, guys. So this is our event graph. We're going to see here that these are tabs we can navigate through. So this one is also a blueprint. Just ignore the construction script for now. We won't be using it. We're going to be mainly using the event graph and the viewport for the first few episodes. So become really familiar with these because I will be referencing these a lot. So we move from the event graph to the viewport. This viewport, if you couldn't tell, is stuff that we will be working with in game. So this is what the player will see. So we see this camera is the view that you see while you're playing. So that camera is what this is what the camera is seeing. So, and I'll prove that just by quickly messing around with this. If I move the camera really close, we'll see suddenly we're in the, I'm really close to the character. So this viewport is going to allow us to change our character to our liking and our view. So you can mess around with this camera if you want now. That's cool. The side view is sort of like the outliner for your class. It's called components, and you're able to access all these components. And much like the world itself and clicking on these, how it highlights, if we go back to that tab, so it's going to open a separate window. You can access those by going to the bottom, or use Alt Tab to quickly navigate through this windows. You can't, although keep in mind that you can't Alt Tab back to the main one, only the little ones. So I can Alt Tab here, but if you had to go back to your main window, you just press the minimize button or you go to the bottom. Much like the actual world itself, we see that these are outlined when I click on them, some of these things. So I can see that this mesh is this thing, this capsule component is this thing. So navigation is very, very simple in Unreal Engine. They try to make it as visually appealing as possible, and that's what I really like about it. It's just very pretty, and also it's very, like I said, intuitive and easy to navigate to, especially once you know what you're doing. So become familiar with these on the side, because this allows us to easily reference things if we need to. We will be talking to a lot of things by its name, sort of like how you call a person by its name. You will call these things by its name and how it's actually referenced in the world or in the blueprint classes. So let's go back to our event graph. And the last thing that I want to be showing you guys is this sort of feature that I will be doing. And if it looks kind of confusing, I want to explain it now. With Unreal Engine, they make it really simple to be able to visualize what's happening while you're programming. And I really love this about Unreal Engine, because if you're new, it sort of helps you understand how our program affects our actual game. And these wires, these white lines that sort of connect these boxes that we see, lights up when they are activated in the game. First, I should quickly explain these colors and what they mean. just become familiar with these red boxes. These red boxes are events. Every single one is an event. And what that means is that once something happens in the game, these events will start and these lines will just run through in order. So say if this event happens, input that provides the current value of the turn right / left gamepad axis once per frame. It sounds a little complicated, but every single event is really specific. And once a certain event happens, these codes will light up. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, let's take, for example, jump. So I'll just zoom in into the jump and we'll see what happens when we press the jump key in game. So here I see that when I press, excuse me, I remembered how to fix this because this happened in the last video. Give me 1 second. So this is the same thing that happened to me earlier. They will not light up unless you close that window and open it from this new referenced blue person character. So if I click edit, we can see that suddenly these orange things that are lighting up show us what code is running. We'll just be looking at the jump feature and we can see that when we press the space bar, suddenly we're able to see, oh, I let go, jump, I let go. And that's what makes Unreal Engine very easy to understand and really help you quickly visualize what's happening. And that's what I love about it. I think I covered most of it. Of course, this video, lesson 0, is supposed to be sort of this base to start. If you don't know what to do, or if you have any questions that's confusing, you can always come back here. I'm more than happy to help you or answer anything, especially if you're a beginner and don't understand something. It's really hard for me, someone that's had years of experience working with this, to sort of clean my brain and start blank and be able to explain it from a beginner's perspective. So it still might be too much, but if you have any questions, please ask them below. I'm here to help you. But lesson 1 will be coming and we will be starting. We'll be going over our main character, and we're going to be changing this character to our liking. So we're going to be adding in health, we're going to be adding in damage, a weapon, sprinting, stamina, and mana if we need. But stuff like that, just the really basics for a role-playing game that all of our characters are going to be using. I know it sounds really complicated, and that's why I sort of created this lesson 0 so that we can begin doing that lesson 1. So be ready, be sure to ask questions, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for joining.